for watching Behind the Campaign. Today we have two of the smartest, most creative marketers that I know and who I'm very proud to work with. We have Francesca McLinn, our Chief Product Officer. She is behind all the products we release at Snappy Kraken. That means she works with a creative team, designers, writers, developers to build every campaign from start to finish and oversee its production. That's her role here. Also with us is Patrice Kelly, our Chief Creative Officer. She is behind the entire Snappy Kraken brand, all of our marketing, and all the great designs that you see. I like to think of her as the person who makes everything we do at Snappy Kraken beautiful. And so it's really my privilege to hear from them. And they're going to talk to us today about some objections that come up sometimes when we look at a new marketing campaign. And I'm going to be really honest about this one. I looked at this latest campaign that we're going to discuss, and I wasn't crazy about it personally. In fact, as an advisor, I said to myself, I'm not sure I would use this. And so I'd like to ask the two of you, looking at this campaign artwork, which feels a bit out there to me, how would you respond to that?
I'll start, Robert. So sometimes I have a similar reaction. You know, I might look at something and say, I'm not too sure about this. But then what I ask myself, and what I would really encourage advisors to ask themselves, is why am I uncomfortable? What's feeding this feeling that I'm having? Because I have to be really careful to separate myself from, what I'm looking at. And I also think that it's really easy to play it safe, especially with marketing. And play it safe marketing, it doesn't get engagement. It doesn't encourage anyone to interact with it. And even if someone out there might have a negative opinion about it or might reach out to an advisor and say, hey, I'm not too sure about this, that's actually a great response because it's engagement. It gives the advisor the opportunity to reach back to that person and start a conversation.
So you're saying that even a negative response from somebody is not the end of the world? The fact that you might get some negative responses doesn't mean you should avoid it?
Absolutely. Negative responses are responses. It's showing that your marketing is out there. It's working for you. It's getting engagement from an audience, and a negative reaction can really turn out one of two ways. One way, it sparks a conversation. Someone reaches back out to you and says, hey, that's not reflective of me at all. Great. You reach back and you say, all right, well, tell me about your experience. I can see that you had a real reaction to this. Can you tell me about that? And so you're digging deeper with a prospect. You're bringing them closer in. And on the other hand, they might just decide to drop off your marketing. And even though nobody likes to get unsubscribed, that's actually a good thing because that person was never going to become a client. And it's better that you're able to focus your marketing on people that will do business with you.
That's a really fresh perspective. It's not one you hear often, but I think the other thing I've found is that actually when you get a few negative responses, it means that it was just something polarizing. Mm-hmm. And when something is polarizing, it also leads to positive responses and it's getting noticed. And so the negative responses are a small fraction of the value of the positive responses anyway.
Absolutely. And actually, can I give you a quick example from a previous campaign?
Please.
So we had an advisor who wrote in and said, hey, I got this really negative response to, an investor recovery campaign, something we released recently. And what do I say? And so, we helped the member out with a response, and he ended up engaging in this multi-part email correspondence with this prospect who'd been sitting on his list for months, maybe years, and got him a lot closer to an appointment and ended up having a really positive interaction, even though the initial response was negative.
That's right. I remember that because the advisor's objection and the prospect's objection was that why are you talking about a recovery when we're in such a strong market? And the point the advisor was able to make in return is that, well, that's great for you. Obviously, your investments are performing, but a lot of people's are underperforming and they need recovery. And that's why I'm here. So that was a great example. Yeah. Patrice, what would you add to this?
So I would add, especially from a creative perspective, that, one of the main parts of the job is really stepping outside of yourself and putting yourself in the mind of the audience and the target that you're trying to speak to. So take me, for instance, I have vastly different wants and likes in need of creative materials and things. But in order for me to do my job effectively, I have to put my mind in with the client and who is going to be engaging with this material. So we have to back off from how we personally feel and really think about what is going to be helpful for the people that we are trying to reach.
Okay, I love this. This is such a great perspective to have, but I want to argue for a minute.
Sure.
The design, all the things that you put into that. Why can't we use the same layout, the same design, the same colors, but get rid of that horror movie-esque face that we have there? Why can't we change the font so it's not so extreme, like it's the cover of a vampire novel, right? Like, why do we have to take it so far?
Okay, great. I'm so glad you asked that. So let's talk about the fact that, like, the face that's in there. Let's talk about the differences, and really, like, we have to be specific with the words we use. So if we're thinking about regular, safer imagery that would go more towards a saddened look, more despair, more grief, well, that is something completely different than this look in this imagery, which is she's wide-eyed. She's fearful. Something is coming around the corner. We're not sure what it is, but she's looking out. And also, we're actually hopeful. Like, it's the same way when you look at a scary movie. We're hopeful that this person is going to survive. So we're taking those two differences in just wording and giving that life to the person that is reading it. So we lean into this horror movie feel of, what do you expect when you go to a horror movie? You know you're not going to know what to expect. You know you're not going to know what's coming around the corner. And a part of my job as a designer is, I'm reading this content. I have to do justice to the words that are on this page, because really, like, what we're doing is trying to help the people engage with your content. We don't want them to just flip through, scroll right past what they think they've already seen. We want them to stop. We want them to say, hey, what is that? And now with this horror movie theme, they're going to stop and they're saying, what does that have to do with retirement? Why is this imagery there? And then that's going to prompt them to look, to read. And then as they go through with the same imagery of the uncertainty, just this foreboding feeling that you feel from horror movies, they will want to keep engaging with the content. They're not going to stop thinking, oh, I've seen all this before. I've seen handshakes, I've seen togetherness, I've seen all these other stock imagery that everyone else is going to use. They're going to keep engaging with that content. They're going to see that woman that is wide-eyed and fearful. They're going to leave with that question of, man, I hope she gets through it, because we hope you get through it too. And then at the end, you're going to have that back page where it's like, oh, now I need to contact my financial advisor. So we're telling a bit of a story here. We're telling it in a unique way so that, you know, my job, my goal for you is to get engagement.
Wow. I feel enlightened. I think what you said is so powerful, but I really want to key in on just one particular piece of it, which opened my mind, is when you talked about how the feelings are involved. And if people see something they've seen before, they just assume they already know and they just keep going. But this is going to make them feel almost a sense of curiosity and maybe even anxiety, and it's going to pull them in. That's just such a powerful point, Patrice, because you're right. People will overlook it if they think they already know what the outcome is. And this makes them feel they don't know the outcome. That's outstanding. Such good points. Francesca, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah. So, you talked about the feeling of curiosity. With a lead gen campaign, we're opening and closing and opening what we call, curiosity loops. So, and it starts with whatever their first engagement with the campaign is. When we're talking about social media, we have to stop the scroll. And so that's why, Patrice and her team pick these attention grabbing images, because you have to just stop the person from scrolling past it. And then that's that first curiosity loop. What is this? What's going on here? So they click through and they get to the page. And that's your next curiosity loop. Wow, I'm engaging with this content. This is interesting to me. I need to know what's inside. So then they opt in, and that's opening or closing the first loop and opening a second loop, which is, well, I'm engaging with this content. I'm reading this. I don't have all the answers. Now I got to contact this advisor to get the rest of the story.
So much strategy here that you can just overlook on the surface and say, well, I don't like that. My clients won't like it. and you
Sure.
just shut down without thinking about all of this strategy. And it goes to show why amateur marketers struggle so much, because they just do what they see other marketers doing. They just do what's safe. They do what's status quo. Then it doesn't perform, and they don't understand why. Because this strategy is what makes it work. It's really fascinating. So I want to ask you, let's say that I buy into this completely, which actually I do now, having heard you. And I decide that I believe in the strategy, but I have another objection now. It doesn't match my brand. It's not my colors. It's not in my voice personally. So it doesn't feel authentic to me, and I still don't want to use it.
So first, I feel like we have to be careful with how we throw around what we believe needs to be branded, right? So this is a piece that you think of it like a commercial. So a commercial is for mass appeal. You have a branded section of the commercial with the logo and things like that. So you think of it like in that sense of, we are speaking on a specific topic. We are trying to get the user to engage based on the emotions and feelings that we are trying to get them to emote through that actual content and those topics in there. We don't want those same feelings associated with the brand. That's why the branded section, where we're talking about the financial, contacting you as a financial advisor and all that, that's why there's a specified location for that part. So you, instead of thinking of it as this is something that needs to be branded to me as a whole, this is one subject that you are talking about, and then we are following up with, yes, talk to me specifically in that branded area about this subject.
Francesca, I see you nodding a lot.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Patrice. In terms of the marketing funnel, these lead gen prospecting campaigns are at the very, very top of the funnel. They're engaging with people that either don't know who you are, only know who you are maybe a little bit, and are much, much, much more concerned with their own problems and solutions to those problems. And so what we're doing with the design and the content is getting into the conversation, joining the conversation that they're already having in their head. And branding is not integral to that. It may actually get in the way of that ultimate goal. Branded content is a lot more important near the bottom of the funnel, when someone has become a client or you're converting them to a client and you need to give them that experience.
Interesting. So you use the analogy of a commercial, Patrice. So a company may produce lots of television commercials that evoke different feelings, they have different settings, they have different characters, they could even be different genres. And yet at the end of those commercials is the brand. Yes. So if this is similar, then you're saying that the top of the funnel is that experience and the bottom of the funnel is where they finally see the brand. And that's happening where? Where in this campaign are they actually getting introduced to the brand?
So I'll take the lead magnet, for example. When we go through all the pages of the content, at the last page, so they are ending on figuring out who you are, where you're at, all your content, your contact information. So we are priming them by talking to them about, like Francesca said, what is important to you. And then that last thing that we leave them with is all the information to get in touch with you so that you all can start forming a relationship or a conversation.
Interesting. Does that apply to other portions of the campaign, Francesca?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the Tripwire page, there's a little bit more information. There's a little bit more branding at the bottom. And then after they've booked the appointment, on the appointment confirmation page, there's more branding, and the advisor's website is there. But I also want to be careful to say that a single campaign isn't an entire marketing funnel. When we talk about the marketing funnel, we're talking about the entire journey. The entire journey that a prospect is going to go through between first seeing something that you've put out and becoming a client. And so this is just that very, very first taste. And later on in the marketing, later on in that journey, when they're engaging with you more closely, is when they're going to be engaging with branded content. Your website, for example, your social media presence, any follow-up emails they're getting from you from booking an appointment or engaging with you. When they become a client, you know, the onboarding process, all of that is a lot more important for it to be branded, because then it's part of their cohesive experience with you.
Yep. Excellent. So don't obsess with branding at the top of the funnel. Focus on what's going to appeal to the audience, what's going to evoke the right emotions, and let them get tied into you and your brand later with those additional interactions farther down the pipeline. Excellent, excellent lesson. So finally, I just want to ask you, you know, we talked a lot about this example with this particular campaign. Have we encountered these kinds of objections before with other campaigns? If so, give me some examples, and what does the data actually prove?
Absolutely. So the one campaign that really jumps to mind is our Social Security lead generation campaign, which has a big old elephant right as the central element of the campaign. And we came up with that initial concept in the strategy phase, and then design took it and ran with it, which is wonderful when they do that. And what we learned was that even though a lot of advisors were like, or not a lot, but a number of advisors were saying, I don't really like that. There's the elephant's butt. Why is this big elephant right here? And, you know, we talked them through that. We talked them behind the strategy. And then we looked at the data, and it's our absolute top performer, especially with cold traffic, with advertising, with prospects on lists, very, very high on-page conversion rates. And what we're learning is that when you take a very timely and interesting topic and you pair it with maybe controversial imagery, it's a very effective combination.
So this goes back to too about what we were talking about with, you know, why lean so hard into that horror movie feel. So as designers, we always are looking for what is the way in this content. We read it all through. What is the way that we can really stand out when we go to designing this and laying out? Sometimes it's the imagery, sometimes it's the entire concept, sometimes it's the way the stuff is laid out or the fonts that are chosen. So with this one, you know, it wasn't as concept heavy as this primary one we're talking about, but it was something, again, to get attention, again, we know there's a lot of security related content out there. So what can we do to make them say, wait, what is that? I think I need to read this. So that is the, like, again, I want to make sure that advisors know, like, creative is your advocate. We are working for you. We are working with you. We want the same goals that you want. And we are working hard to make that content digestible, to make it pleasing, and to make it effective. So that, because really, I mean, if you just get the content out there and no one reads it or no one wants to interact with it, then the job is not done. So it's only half done when you have content. The full job is, and that is, I take that personally, to help you make sure that you engage with these clients.
Well, for both of you, I just want to say thank you for this outstanding insight. I've learned a lot today. Actually, one of the things that stands out of everything you've said is that to be a truly great marketer, you have to set your own personal preferences aside. You have to stop worrying about what others in the space might be doing, because the more you go with what's comfortable and the more you go with what's safe, the less effective it will be. And you've just shown how creative decisions like this, even controversial artwork and designs, actually lead to more effective outcomes. And I want to thank you personally, because I know a lot of companies, especially marketing companies in this space, they say, we're going to help you stand out. We're going to help you stand out. And yet it's exactly the same bland marketing. But when we say we help you stand out, we really do. And I thank you for that. And I know our members thank you for that, because it shows up in their performance. Thanks so much for your time today.